Welcome to Organized Zen Now. My name is Janie Downey. Thank you so much for joining me here today. So this talk is a part of a series on Organized Zen. So Organized Zen is a concept that says you want to get to your best work. You want to be organized. You want to get things done. But the Zen piece is doing that in a peaceful way that works really well for you. We all get caught up in, oh, here's a trend, or here's something that works for everybody else. Why isn't that working for me? So it's really spending time with yourself and making decisions about how you live your life and what you want to get done. If this talk is helpful, please like below, please share, and please subscribe. The subscription part is super important because it helps other folks on YouTube find the content that they're looking for. All right, so this is, again, a series of talks. What I'm talking about right now is taking care of your precious self. So one of the biggest parts of taking care of your precious self is food. So I just did a talk and ended it with an action. I like to do an action at the end so you have some way to say, oh, I'm going to make this happen in my life. The last action was really talking about keeping a food diary to figure out what foods affect you in different ways. So I'm going to talk about two very specific things that you might want to track in a food diary today. And a food diary can be so informal. It can be something you just keep on a pad of paper. I keep mine in a planner. I've been tracking the food I eat for probably over 30 years, maybe. It could be in a big art notebook. It's whatever you want to keep it in. But again, you want to have a Zen thought with that. Here's where I keep things, not just little scraps of paper around. So the two things I'm going to talk to you about today are sugar, and don't panic, but sugar is a big deal. And the second is the time of day and the times of day that you eat and how that can really affect you and your health. So it's interesting because Washington Post today had an article and it was talking about the impact of stress on your life and the overall effect of that, which is really what gets to why I'm giving these talks, which is if you are under stress, your body is geared for that, right? So when we were in a survival state, when we were in our caveman bodies, we're not that different than that. If something happened, we needed to key up. We needed our blood pressure to go up. We needed to be our pulse to go up. We needed to be totally focused on what was happening so that we could run or we could hide. We are under a lot of ongoing stress right now in the world. And what happens with that is that your body's constantly keyed up. And I'm going to talk about how that ties in with timing and sugar. But if you're constantly keyed up and your body's constantly producing cortisol and constantly raising your blood pressure, in the long run, it affects your brain, it affects your heart, it affects your intestines. You know that feel, right? When you're just stressed all of the time. And then what can happen is something big happens. And that's what your body's geared to do, is to react when something big happens. If you're constantly wired up and then something big happens, is when you can end up with a stroke or a heart attack. And we don't want that to happen. So that's why I'm talking about this. So let me backtrack. We're going to talk about food right now. Okay, so two really interesting studies. So the first one we're going to talk about is sugar. So sugar is in all of our lives. It's in a lot of common foods. So last talk I gave, I was talking about reading the ingredients. You might be surprised at the sugar content that's in a lot of the ingredients, even just white bread. You just think, why does that have sugar in it? But it has sugar in it. So you want to know how much sugar you're putting in your system. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I will tell you that tracking sugar, you'll think, oh, they're all exceptions. Like, well, today there was a birthday party at work, or tonight, we were celebrating my child's tooth came out and we're having ice cream, or let's all go get cookies. Like, there's a very social aspect to sugar, and we're raised with sugar. It's again, in a lot of our foods, it's a really tricky, sort of weird beast. So what I'm advocating for you for this week is to track the amount of sugar that you are putting in your body. And if you want to be inspired, there's a movie that came out by this Australian guy, Damon Gameau, and it's called That Sugar Film. And what was amazing with this film was Damon, when he decided to do it, he said, I'm going to overdo it on sugar, but I'm not going to overdo it on calories. So I'm going to eat the same amount of calories I normally eat, but I'm going to have 40 teaspoons of sugar today. And that's a day. And that's a lot, right? If you were sitting at a sugar bowl with a teaspoon, you would never eat that much sugar. But he did this of what he calls behind the quinoa curtain. So he was looking at the ingredients in what were considered to be healthy foods, sauces, mixes, breads, whole grains. You think, oh, this is healthy. But all these little bits of sugar started to add up. So his goal, though, was to add those up, to say, I'm going to get 40 teaspoons of sugar a day. So he was going to do this for 2 months, and he was going to measure the impact on his body. He got 3 weeks into this, and they shut it down. They shut him down. He had a doctor that was working directly with him. He went from being very healthy to, within 3 weeks, being type 2, pre-type 2 diabetes in his system. He was foggy. He didn't feel well. He was achy all over. It really did a number on his system. So we don't advocate testing that out. We're going to live by his results to say it was just a great example of there's a lot of hidden sugar, and sugar has a big impact. So if you've got sugar in your diet, even if it's a small amount, my action out of that for you this week is to take that food diary that you were tracking last week to just say, what is it that I eat? Let's just see if I know what's in the foods that I consume, and see how much sugar is in there. And maybe make a separate little column then to say how much of this is sugar, and then try to figure out ways that maybe you want to cut back on that. As always, everybody's body is so different. So I advocate just testing. You're your own little test zone. So cut back a little bit. If you love to have a cookie every night after dinner, can you make it a half a cookie, or can you do it every other night? It is a habit. It is ingrained, and it is addictive. So if you've got a lot of sugar in your diet, cut back a little bit. If you've got a little bit in your diet, cut back a little bit more, and just test it out and see how you feel. And at the end of the week, see, did this make a big difference? His study went on for 3 weeks, and he found that huge difference. So it's not going to take a huge amount of time for you to figure that out, of sugar in your diet. Okay, the second thing, and I think this is so interesting, and I've read a lot of studies on this. So if you want to read more studies on this, Google tracking the hours that you actually eat your food. So a lot of people do something now called intermittent fasting, and I think that sounds super intimidating. But the study that I felt was the most helpful was a study with mice, and I know we're not mice, but there's a lot of similarities with how our systems work. They tracked mice, and they gave one group of mice, both sets of mice, same with Damon's study, same amount of calories. 2 sets of mice, one had an 8-hour window to eat within, and the other could eat that same amount of calories whenever they got to it. The impact of weight and health on the mice that could eat at any time, which is how most of us are, we don't really limit how often we eat, was huge. So the study was big. And when they did it, they repeated it. Other people picked it up because there just seemed to be a huge amount with this. So if we again go back to our caveman days, we were used to running, catching, picking things. There was a lot of action involved in securing food. Then you had food for a while. Then you didn't have food for a while. And our bodies are really geared to actually like that, to actually not eat all of the time. And what the studies are saying, what the science is behind that, is that it's very hard to both eat and to metabolize at the same time. So if you are eating on a constant basis through the day and your body's trying to metabolize, it's going to spend all the time trying to digest the food you're bringing in and not metabolize it into your system. So taking a break with your food is what gives your body time to clean house, get things put away, store things back up. It gives your liver a break, it gives your stomach a break, and then it gives your whole body a break. So you can limit your hours, or you could even just say limit hours within. So if you're eating a big breakfast, maybe you aren't eating lunch and then you're eating a dinner. I like the 8-hour window. I like to eat breakfast fairly late in the day, and then I like to eat dinner fairly early. So I'm still doing 3 meals, but I tuck them in, and that gives my body like 16 hours each day to go, all right, process that and see if that makes you feel better. Okay, so that one's an interesting then too. So if you're doing a food diary, which again, I advocate, pretty easy to do. You're just writing down as you go during the day or at the end of the day, what did I eat today? I track weight and I track calories as well. But in this case, just you're looking at sugar, and then also look at the times to say, does it make me feel better if I am eating at different times of the day than what I'm currently eating in? And again, experiment on yourself. You're your study of one, and that's what really matters. You're the one that matters. You're not trying to do this the way that everybody else does it, but does it make me feel better? Do I feel better? If you're trying to lose weight, did it help me lose weight? It did with the mice. To eat a limited amount of time during the day. And if you set up that premise with yourself to say, I'm making this decision for myself. It's not because someone told you to. It's not because a doctor's breathing down your neck or a spouse or a friend to say, what about weight? You're just saying, I want to feel really healthy and I want to get to my best work and I want to get a lot done. What are ways that I can get there that are pretty low stress? Writing it down and then spending time, as always, thinking and looking at that and saying, how did this work for me? And did it make me feel better? Okay, good luck with that. I hope that helps. And if there's a big birthday party, you got to make little exceptions, but I will tell you, I don't even make exceptions anymore for that, for sugar. It's not worth it. It trashes my system. So I'm super sensitive to it, but maybe you are too. Maybe you don't know. All right, have fun with that. Talk to you later. Bye.